Jake tries to smoke from a glass pipe but can't find a lighter. He tears through his messy room, searching, then even knocks on his neighbor's door but no answer. Desperate, he walks into a broken-down convenience store, grabs a lighter, and leaves. The streets are eerily empty. No people, no cars, nothing, just silence. He walks through a park, sits on a bench, lights his pipe, and takes a hit. That's when he notices something under the bench. A hand. He looks closer and finds a woman's lifeless body. Terrified, Jake grabs his phone to call his dad, but there's no signal. Panicked, he runs home, shouting for his family. But what he finds is horrifying. His parents and sister, all pale and lifeless. The television is still on, displaying a chilling message. Emergency broadcast system. Do not fall asleep. Jake thinks he's just high, and this can't be real. Then, a boy named Sam rides up on a bike. Jake was just sitting outside his house in shock. Sam tells him the terrifying truth. Over the last 2 days, everyone who fell asleep died, and they need to stay awake, no matter what. In the next scene, Jake, Sam, and 2 women, Lily and Rachel, are at a pool, trying to stay awake. They inject themselves with adrenaline and take pills from orange bottles, anything to keep sleep at bay. They dance, swim, joke, anything to stay conscious. But things start to unravel. Lily begins to hallucinate, and Rachel helps her calm down. Later, Lily calls for help. When Jake and Sam rush in, they find Rachel dead. They try to revive her with adrenaline, but it's too late. They now have only a few shots left. Suddenly, Rachel steals the last of the adrenaline and escapes. Jake and Sam chase her. They need it to survive. While driving, Jake starts to nod off. Sam takes the wheel and, in desperation, stabs a screwdriver into Jake's thigh to jolt him awake. As they're chasing Rachel, a plane crashes into her car completely, out of nowhere. The pilot survives and is stunned to see someone of Sam's age alive. He explains he's been flying from city to city and hasn't seen anyone his age awake. They beg him for drugs, and he reluctantly gives them some. The group then heads to a hospital to find more medicine. Inside, a few people are still alive. A medical worker named Ally treats Jake and warns him he's taken 35 times the safe dose of the drugs. He's on borrowed time. Later, the pilot explains something strange he discovered. People aren't dying at the same time everywhere. In each city, the deaths happen exactly 1 minute earlier than the last. For example, if one city dies at 3:06 a.m., the next city over dies at 3:05 a.m., then 3:04, and so on. The further west they go, the earlier it gets. He believes that if they keep heading west, they might find the origin of whatever is causing this nightmare. The pilot decides to fly toward the origin. Allie and another survivor, Sarah, want to come. Sam is in too, but Jake hesitates as he's scared, and he thinks they have enough supplies to survive here. Ally interrupts. She tells Jake it doesn't matter. No one can survive more than 10 days without sleep. Everyone has an expiration date. Hearing that, Jake makes his decision. He's going with them. We flash back a few days. Inside the hospital, it's just another quiet night shift for Dr. Eli, until it suddenly isn't. The patients start dying in their sleep, one after the other. Chaos erupts. After some research, they find sleep have become lethal. The head doctor tells everyone to keep talking and speaking to stay awake. He tells his colleagues to check out the other facilities to let them know the details of what happened. But Eli notices her best friend Lex's car speeding away. She has abandoned her. She's alone. Back in the present, Eli and the group, along with the pilot, his name is Derek, grabs the fastest car from the hospital and heads to the next town, desperately trying to stay awake. Sarah, ever resourceful, picks up chili peppers on the way. She plans to bite into them to keep herself alert. They arrive at the next town's hospital, only to find it completely destroyed, burned to the ground. They realize they won't make it to the next city without collapsing. That's when Jake suggests checking the local morgue. Maybe the records of the dead are stored there. They head to the morgue and are surprised to find a wild party going on. Survivors are dancing to deafening music, doing anything they can to stay awake. They head inside to search for records, while Sarah decides to dance for a while. "We might never get to do this again," she says with a grin. Jake stays behind to keep an eye on her. Inside, the trio sifts through dusty files, but finds no time of death records, only vague handwritten notes. Then they spot a locked laptop. If they can crack it, it might contain the data they need. Meanwhile, Jake starts to spiral. The energy drinks, sleep deprivation, and stress catch up with him. He begins hallucinating, seeing his little sister. He stumbles away from the party, chasing the ghost of his past. Haunted by regret, show he took his family for granted. How he just kept getting high and ignoring what mattered. Back inside, Sam manages to hack into the laptop. The data confirms their theory. The people in this town died exactly 1 minute before those in the last town. They're heading in the right direction. The source of this sleep-death plague must lie further west. Jake, lost in his hallucination, wanders aimlessly. His mind flashes back to better days with his family and his failures. Finally, Sam finds him and pulls him back to reality. Together, they search for Sarah, but it's too late. Sarah had fallen asleep. Even with the blaring music, she's gone. Doctor. Eli is furious. Sarah was like a sister to Herond. She had trusted Jake to watch over her. She lashes out, saying Jake shouldn't come with them anymore. But Sam stands by him. Jake had saved his life. He's not abandoning him now. Reluctantly, Eli agrees to let Jake stay. As the group prepares to leave, Eli gets a message on her radio. It's from the friend named Lex, which abandoned her earlier, but Lex claims they've found a cure for the condition. Anyone who wants the antidote should come to a nearby town. Eli is filled with hope, but Derek is skeptical. How can there be a cure without research? He argues. He still wants to follow the original path, westward, to where he believes the outbreak began. So, they split up. Next, we cut to a flashback. A tired, desperate man fights to stay awake, his eyelids drooping even as his television repeats the command, "Stay awake," over and over. Frustrated, he shatters his bathroom mirror after a bath, cutting his hand on the broken glass. Now, bleeding and delusional, he staggers into the street, even piercing nails through his own body in a brutal attempt to keep himself conscious. Suddenly, he spots a woman walking by, gives chase, and, in an act of rage, takes her life. Now Jake, Sam, and Eli were on the road again, heading to Eli's friend's place. To stay awake, they kept themselves busy, playing games, cracking jokes, anything to fight the creeping exhaustion. Then, bang! Out of nowhere, a man drops from a bridge and lands right on their car, sending it crashing into a tree. Chaos. The impact knocks Eli nearly unconscious. Sam, panicking, splashes water and energy drinks on her face to wake her. As he grabs more supplies from the trunk, he spots an unknown figure standing on the bridge. The man was pushed. Someone did this, but there's no time to deal with it. Sam focuses on Eli, who finally wakes up, dazed and hurt. Their car is damaged. No way to keep driving. Now, battered and exhausted, the three have no choice but to walk under the blazing sun, searching for help. Meanwhile, Derek, traveling alone, is struggling too. Fatigue weighs on him, and he nearly crashes several times. To keep going, he pulls over, closes his eyes, and listens to old recordings of his family. Their voices give him a surge of strength. He gets back behind the wheel, back to Jake and group. After a long, punishing walk, they finally stumble into a small town. Loud music echoes through the air. That means people are nearby. Jake tells Sam to stay with Eli while he scouts ahead. As he walks through the eerily festive streets, Jake sees skulls hanging from posts, people in creepy skull face paint, and strange decorations everywhere. Meanwhile, Eli, half conscious, was on the verge of falling asleep. But just before she completely blacks out, a group of people with similar creepy skull face paint spots her. They carry her to a safe place and makes her drink a strange potion. It jolts her awake. Fully alert now, she sees Jake and Sam rushing in, relieved she's okay. The townspeople explain everything. They're survivors too. Their leader, Julio, had convinced everyone to start celebrating the Day of the Dead, keeping themselves awake through music, dancing, and ritual. The potion Eli drank? A powerful, homeopathic mix that keeps them alert without sleep. Julio proudly shows Sam around the camp, where survivors live in relative peace. Sam even meets a girl his age, Carmen, who gives him a tour and makes him feel normal for the first time in days. But peace doesn't last. Suddenly, the same unknown man attacks Carmen. Sam screams for help. Julio and his men rush in, while Eli tends to Carmen's wounds. It's bad. She'll need surgery, but they have to perform with no anesthesia. If Carmen sleeps, even for a second, she'll die. Eli, horrified, agrees to operate anyway. Sam helps. Jake, overwhelmed by the gore and stress, steps outside, saying he'll guard the entrance. Just as the surgery begins, the power cuts out, gunshots ring out. The camp is under attack. The violent unknown man keeps killing to stay awake. Inside, by candlelight, Eli races against time to save Carmen. She and Sam keep talking to her, desperate to keep her conscious. Then, the attacker bursts into the room. A struggle breaks out between him and Julio. Just as the attacker gains the upper hand, he turns his attention toward Eli and the others, ready to strike. But Jake, just in time, takes the attacker down. Julio returns, stunned but thankful. Eli finishes the surgery. Carmen is saved. Grateful, Julio gives them his car, a stockpile of the stay-awake potion. Eli promises, if the antidote her friend mentioned is real, she'll come back and share it with everyone here. Sam says goodbye to Carmen, and with that, they drive off into the unknown. Elsewhere, we meet a man named Bill and his girlfriend, Nicole. They've been wandering through empty cities, trying to enjoy whatever time they have left in this strange post-sleep world. Today, they decide to visit the same town Dennis went to earlier, hoping for one last adventure together. But as they arrive and start refueling their car, chaos erupts. A man steps out of another vehicle and is immediately shot in the head. Panicked, Bill and Nicole dive behind their car. A hidden sniper is taking out anyone who steps into view. Unsure of what to do, they suddenly notice a flashlight flickering in the distance. Someone is signaling them to come over. They run for it and the person behind the light turns out to be Dennis. He explains everything. Since arriving, he's been hiding with other survivors because a sniper has been targeting anyone moving around in the open. They can't move forward into the city until the sniper is found and stopped. Dennis asks Bill and Nicole why they came to this town. Nicole, a bit emotional, shares that they want to visit as many places as they can before the end. They're hoping to create beautiful memories before it's all over, but Dennis urges them to focus on survival. According to his research, the source of the disease and possibly a curus located somewhere in the center of this town. If they can get there, maybe, just maybe, they can fix everything. But as long as the sniper is out there, they're stuck. So Dennis begins crafting a plan to catch the shooter. Back to Eli and group, after a long journey, they finally reach the town. They're expecting to find Eli's friend Lex and, hopefully, a cure. But what they see instead is disturbing. Armed guards roam the area, hurting civilians at gunpoint. Jake immediately suspects they were tricked, but Eli refuses to give up. She trusts Lex and insists on finding her, even if it means walking straight into danger. Despite Jake's protests, the trio decides to approach the armed group, but they strip down to show they're unarmed and not a threat. Meanwhile, Dennis's plan works. With a clever distraction, he sneaks behind the sniper and captures her. To everyone's surprise, the sniper is a young woman named Meredith. She calmly explains that she wasn't killing just anyone only, those who had become violent from lack of sleep. She says she never shot an innocent person. In fact, she had Bill and Nicole in her sights earlier, but chose not to fire. The others begin to trust her. Dennis sees her skills as a major asset and invites her to join the group. With Meredith on their side, they prepare to head into the heart of the city to search for the cure. Back with Eli's group, the guards take them into an old hospital where, at last, they find Lex. Eli is visibly upset that Lex didn't come to her during the crisis. As the tension settles, Jake and Sam finally understand. Lex wasn't just a friend. She and Eli were lovers, something neither of them had known until now. Elsewhere, Dennis's group begins bonding. One woman, Nina, shares a strange experience. The night the world changed, she received a strange warning on her phone. Don't fall asleep tonight. She stayed awake and lived. Everyone else who slept that night didn't. Only later did Nina realize that someone had actually saved her life. She traced the warning message she got that night and discovered something shocking. The message came from this very town. That's why she came here, to find out who warned her and why. Bill helps out. He checked the number that sent Nina the message and found that it had been routed through a nursing home right in the center of town. The group rushed there, hoping to find answers. But the place was a graveyard completely deserted, with only dead bodies left behind. Then, Meredith spotted a security camera. They checked the footage, looking for clues. The recordings showed that the nursing home staff had no idea what was happening. The patients who went to sleep that night simply never woke up. It suddenly clicked for Bill. The message didn't come from the nursing home itself, it came through it. Someone must have used the nursing home's phone lines to send the message from nearby. He realized the only place that could have done that was the local TV broadcast center. But just then, Bill told them he and Nicole weren't going any further. They both had a terminal illness. Even if a cure was found, it wouldn't save them. We're going to spend tonight enjoying what time we have left, Bill said. And then, we'll sleep. With that, Bill and Nicole left the group. They wandered the quiet streets of the city hand in hand. Bill broke into a bakery, and the two shared a meal. Then they curled up together, and finally, after days without rest, they fell asleep and passed away peacefully in each other's arms. Back in the other town, Lex explained the breakthrough. They had created a temporary medicine that could safely let someone sleep for 1 hour without dying. It wasn't a full cure, but it was a lifeline. Just a little rest could help people survive longer. Lex and a group of doctors had discovered that it wasn't sleep itself that killed people, but when they fall into deep sleep state. Their new injection could stop that from happening for an hour. Now Lex wanted to test it on Sam, who was on the edge of collapse. Jake was nervous. What if Sam died anyway? But Lex reassured him. The formula had already been tested. Sam needed rest. It was now or never. So Lex gave him the injection. Sam finally drifted off into sleep. Back in the other town, Ellis and the rest of the group finally reached the television broadcast station, the place where the signal that changed the world might have been sent from. This tower was the epicenter. Just as they were about to go inside, a blinding light flashed from outside. A voice warned them not to enter. The place was heavily guarded, and if they stepped in, they'd be killed. They shot fire at Broadcaster. Back at the facility, after Sam's sleep experiment, Jake and Eli were also given the serum. They hadn't slept in 4 days. As soon as Jake fell asleep, the nightmares returned memories of his little sister, Megan. She had always wanted her big brother around, to play with her, but Jake had been too consumed by drugs to be there for her, not even at the end. Dr. Eli dreamed too. Her nightmare was death of Sam and Jake. She jolted awake and relieved to see both alive. Back at TV station, after everyone calmed down, Alonzo allowed them in. They ask him how the virus spread from this TV station, but he denies any claims. He tells them that he just broadcasts morning news. Dennis tells him to switch the television broadcast off. He thinks maybe they are broadcasting the virus through radio waves. Alonzo still feigns ignorance. But just as they were following the instructions of Alonzo, he tricked them into trap and free himself from them. At facility, Lex explains that they were still testing ways to extend the serum's effect. If successful, people could sleep for many hours safely. She also showed them images of previous test subjects. The serum they had now was only possible because of those early experiments. But to perfect it, they'd need even more people. Despite everything, Jake and Sam felt hopeful. Maybe things could go back to normal. Jake made a silent promise. Once the world was safe again, he'd quit drugs for good. And he'd treat Sam like the little brother he never had the chance to be for Megan. Then Lex introduced them to the head of the hospital, Dr. Abraham. She called him a genius, the real reason the serum existed. If anyone could save the world, it was him. Dr. Abraham seemed calm and professional. He told Jake and Sam they would be important for the next phase of the mission, but didn't say what they'd need to do. Later, he quietly ordered his guards to head to another town and bring back survivors b-force. This was the shocking truth. Dr. Abraham had been kidnapping people all along. He'd used them as test subjects, knowing full well many wouldn't survive the experiments. Hundreds had already died for the serum to exist, and now he needed more. Jake, Sam, and Dr. Eli had no idea about any of this. Elsewhere, 2 men, Clay and his friend, were preparing to strike the hospital. Their families had been taken by Dr. Abraham's guards, and they were coming for revenge. Alonzo began to confess. He told them how he had been reading the news from this very station for the past 20 years. It was his job to inform the public about everything happening across the country and the world. And he had been good at it. He had a voice people trusted. But over time, he started noticing something. The world was changing. Fast. News kept coming. Population numbers were rising out of control. Earth's ecosystem was starting to collapse. The ice at the North and South Poles was melting. Pollution levels were skyrocketing. He talked about all of it on his broadcasts, trying to raise awareness. No one listened. People were too busy chasing money, building bigger factories, polluting the air with smoke and chemicals. Governments turned a blind eye, and those who tried to speak up, ministers, environmentalists, even scientists, were quickly silenced. If things continued this way, humanity wouldn't just destroy itself, it would take the planet down with it. So he made a decision. If no one else would stop this disaster, then he would. One day, a scientist friend came to him with a discovery: an experimental virus. This virus attacked the brain as soon as someone fell asleep. It would shut the brain down permanently. In other words, sleep meant death. That's when the idea was born. Alonzo worked with the scientist to modify the virus. They engineered it to spread rapidly, invisibly. Once it was ready, Alonzo killed the scientist to cover his track sand, then launched the virus into the world. From right here, from this very station. But that wasn't all. Alonzo dropped a bombshell. The virus hadn't stopped spreading. His station was still broadcasting the virus, transmitting it into the atmosphere and sending it towards satellites, which were bouncing it back down across the entire planet through radio waves. That's how the infection was still reaching every corner of the globe. Dennis and the others were stunned. They had come here looking for answers, and now they had them. But what they had uncovered was far worse than anything they'd imagined. Dennis finally understood why the reports of people dying always came 1 minute late in every town. It was because the virus took time to spread from this television station to other areas. Now, with almost no one left alive, Dennis realized if they could just shut down the station's broadcast, maybe they could stop the virus from spreading further. Maybe they could still save the remaining few. Through the small window in the door, Dennis could see Alonzo keeping himself awake, burning his skin with a cigarette to stay conscious. That's when they started forming a plan to escape and shut down the broadcast once and for all. But just then, they see Nana's husband, who was still alive, hiding in the TV station, tried to sneak up and stop Alonzo. He was shot dead, right in front of her. Dennis kept Alonzo talking to distract him, while two members of his team, including Nan, escaped through a hatch in the roof. Nana realized the horrifying truth. Alonzo would do anything to complete his twisted mission. Suddenly, the lights began to flicker. Alonzo immediately understood someone was restarting the system. Panicked, he rushed into the news studio to deliver one final broadcast. He confessed that everything he did was to protect the Earth. But before he could finish his message, Nana burst in and shot him live on camera. The man who had caused so much death and taken her husband's life was finally gone. Nana freed everyone inside, and together they shut down the station's broadcast. That very signal had been spreading the virus. With it gone, the virus would fade within hours. The remaining survivors were safe. Dennis's team also destroyed whatever samples of the virus were still inside the station. Meanwhile, at the hospital, after learning the whole truth, Jake, Sam, and Eli were trying to escape just as Clay and his group launched an attack. On their way out, they ran into Clay. But instead of stopping them, Clay let them pass. Understood that they had probably been brought there against their will, just like everyone else. Then, Dr. Abraham appeared. He tried to justify his cruel experiments. "People were going to die anyway," he said coldly. "I was just helping the world in my own way." Clay hesitated and began to lower his gun. That's when Abraham made his move, injecting Clay with the same drug he had once used on Sam. Outside, Jake and the others were trying to leave when Lex appeared, trying to stop them. Eli stepped forward and made it clear they weren't staying. Lex pulled a gun on them, but Jake came from behind and quickly disarmed her. They left her behind and drove off. At the same time, Dennis sent a message over the radio. His voice crackled through. "We did it. Everything's fixed now. The world's going back to normal. We'll start over, together." Jake and group set off to meet Dennis and the others. Now, Dennis and his group finally fall asleep peacefully after a long struggle for survival, and they live to see another day. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel for more videos.